What up, y'all? It's your man Abuamerican. Uh, I'm gonna read an article I wrote from a website. The link will be in the description bar. And this was a question I was asked on a Facebook group. It's a secret Facebook group, so don't ask me about it. It's very difficult to get into. There's actually a questionnaire to get in. Anyway, the question was about cuckoldry. And so, seeing how this was a big topic, I ended up writing 4 pages straight. So what I'm going to do is read verbatim from what I wrote. So it's not going to be all exciting like I usually do with my, you know, how I get sometimes. So let's get right into this. Cuckoldry. In today's world of gynocentrism and feminism, there has been a rise in the popularity of cuckoldry. Oddly, this has become widespread and accepted by both men and women. A simple search on YouTube will provide you with pages of results of videos almost exclusively produced by women on how to make your man a cuckold. We will go into why women do this and what she thinks of you if you find yourself in the position of a woman attempting to broach this topic with you. What is cuckoldry? According to Wikipedia, cuckoldry can be defined as follows. A cuckold is the husband of an adulterous wife. In evolutionary biology, the term is also applied to males who are unwittingly investing parental effort into offspring that are not genetically their own. I will go into more detail on parental investment later on in this section. Who wants it most? Women, of course, because she is the one with the most to gain out of such an arrangement than a man does. Let's break this down bit by bit because there are some misconceptions about cuckolds and what constitutes cuckoldry, or what constitutes cuckoldry. Firstly, cuckoldry is almost always initiated by the woman, and any and all methods of being cuckolded should be viewed as hostile, regardless of how the topic is broached. When a woman cuckolds a man, it is genetic murder. It is her knowingly and willfully cutting off his genetic lineage. If she approaches the topic via jokes or directly addresses the topic as a matter of fact, a man with any self-respect or dignity should view this as an unforgivable offense. A man who enjoys watching his wife have sex with another man or arranges this is not a cuckold. He is a man with an extreme sexual fetish, which has been called a form of masochism by psychologist Roy Baumeister. A man being cuckolded is when it is done by an adulterous wife, as the definition states. Therefore, it is something usually done in secret by the wife, unbeknownst to the husband. Sometimes this is done with the knowledge of several people around him, making him the open joke within his direct social circle. A man can willingly be cuckolded by investing parental effort into a child that is not his own. Again, this is something that is usually initiated by the woman or a self-esteem beta male and should be viewed as hostile. I will cover this more in detail in its own section. Females, the biology of it all. Women have legitimate, duplicit reproductive needs which require multiple things from a single partner. If she cannot attain these multiple needs from a single partner, then she will look to multiple partners instead. Firstly, she needs a solid provisioner to take care of her and her offspring. This means financial investment. Secondly, she needs the best possible genetic material, aka sperm, to produce a child with the best possible genetic attributes for survival. She needs an alpha provider. Due to the fact that in all societies alpha males are few in number and alpha providers are unicorns amongst men, she turns to a new strategy to meet her needs. She marries a good provider and reproduces with the alpha, which gave birth to the 21st century phase, the alpha fucks and the beta bucks, aka he finances it all. In this strategy, she will mate as often as possible with the alpha and become pregnant with his child, all the while reducing or avoiding altogether sexual congress with her husband as to reduce the chances that she becomes pregnant with his child, and then hides the true paternity of the offspring to the husband, who continues to dutifully provision her and her child from the other man. Moving past biology, we look to the social aspect. Here, a woman cannot find an alpha male to call her own, so she settles for a beta provider and then goes out and cheats with a higher value male who has no interest in investing in her long term. His interests are purely sexual. In this, she gains an increase in SMV, sexual market value, and social proofing, but it is hard work and effort to maintain this relationship because it must be done in secret, because most men, even the most beta, will tend to have a serious problem with his wife being railed by a more masculine man. Actually, any man. I opine that a woman who attempts to get her man to accept this arrangement of a willing cuckold is one that is completely despises her husband, but accepts that he is a superior provisioner and finds it too difficult to maintain secrecy, or her husband is unworthy of maintaining secrecy. She understands that her husband has a scarcity mindset and will do anything to remain in the relationship with her, to include becoming a willing participant in her desires, which biologically stem from legitimate wants. Again, note, this is only to her benefit. She no longer has to cheat, sneak around while getting the best of both worlds. If she can pull this off, the man is no longer being cuckolded. He is simply a guy with a fetish, or a man with no pride and self-worth, which will only worsen his situation later on in the relationship. Women and children, aka single mothers. Before we move on to men, I want to cover single mothers. Here, in this sense, a man can become a willing cuckold by accepting the role of father figure to a child or children which are not his own. As the definition states, males who are unwittingly investing in parental effort in offspring that are not genetically his own. Here, just like in the sexual arrangement, the woman attempts to convince the man that this is what is necessary in order to remain with her, or to remain with him, or for her to remain with him. In both cases, it is not to the benefit of the man nor his reproductive needs, but rather benefits her and her needs solely. In this, a woman can and will attempt to turn an alpha into a beta cuckold in one move, which should be viewed as exceptionally hostile. It raises her sexual market value and completely removes his. It sets the stage for her to continue the trend from parental cuckoldry, willing or convinced or compelled, and progressing to having sex with other men. This is by no means a far stretch when you look at the definition of cuckold. Rather, one stems from and is directly connected to the other. Men in relationships with single mothers should not take on parental duties of any kind if the child's father is alive or the child has a living male relative, aka uncles, grandfathers, etc. Excuse me. All attempts for her to foist parental duties upon you should be viewed as exceptionally hostile and responded to in kind. You must understand that in some women, these are active processes but not active thoughts. She might, in all sincerity, not view her acts as duplicit or hostile, but have no doubt that they are, and your compliance will change the nature of the relationship to the negative, meaning the relationship will start to deteriorate and suffer. And she won't know why, and, well, now you will know why. Men, the biology of it all. Firstly, cuckoldry does not benefit a man in the least. It is in essence genetic suicide for a man to willingly accept such an arrangement. Socially and psychologically, it's castration and humiliation. From her part, I didn't add this in here, it's genetic murder, when I said that earlier. The reasons given for men to biologically accept such an arrangement are at best shaky, but here they are. Robin Baker, who authored the book Sperm Wars, holds that when a man thinks his female mate may have had sexual congress with another man, the man's biological urges are triggered to mate with his wife in order to compete with the other man's sperm in impregnating the woman. This is why some men become excited from the idea of his woman having sex with another man. This is his hypothesis. Psychology regards cuckold fetishism as a variant of masochism, the cuckold deriving pleasure from being humiliated. Word for word from Wikipedia. That's it, really. There is some talk of psychology and other stuff, but nothing else that would make a man biologically preconditioned to accept or seek out such an arrangement like you would find in women. Social media cuckoldry. In this day and age, we find that this cuckoldry is a trend that most men fail to recognize, aka the selfie culture. Let there be no doubt that if your woman is posting selfies, she is without question cuckolding you. She is soliciting herself by way of her sexuality to men who are responding. Men are visual creatures, and she understands this and is using it to her benefit, not yours. It is a lesser form of cuckolding, but you are a willing participant in your woman propositioning herself out to men on the internet. What is her potential gain for this, and what is your gain? You gain nothing but the leering eyes of men upon your woman. Her, on the other hand, gets droves upon droves of male orbiters propositioning her for sex or the fulfillment of her needs in exchange for an attempt to have sex with her. Kanye West is a classic example of a man who hasn't learned his lesson with social media cuckolding. Kanye West used to be together with Amber Rose, who, while with him, would pose naked and provocatively online. Eventually, she left him for Wiz Khalifa, who also let her pose naked online, and he in turn lost her to some other guy. Kanye is now with Kim Kardashian, who also poses naked provocatively online. Despite her having kids, she is in excellent shape and can and will most likely find a more valuable man who will accept that she has had sex with several men on camera, poses naked online, and has kids with other men, and in turn will do the same uh, as all the other men before her until she leaves him too. Believe it or not, Kanye is a beta provider with a scarcity mentality. He uses his status and wealth to attract highly valuable women who he has no control over. His lack of self-worth and value allows him to let his woman run free posing naked for the world to see without second thought of how his children and the long-term effects that it can have on them. He fears that putting the brakes on her behavior will cause him to lose her, or he sees it as a strength in it that he lets her do as she wishes because she is his at the end of the day. I ask you, does Kanye benefit from her posing naked, or does she? She maintains the center stage of male attention at his expense. She benefits from that because if he ever takes a fall, her sexual value won't. And men know what she is working with in terms of her body and will line up for days to get a shot at her. They will line up outside her place with tents just like people do to get a new iPad or iPhone. Make no mistake, if you're letting your woman post selfies online, she is being propositioned by man after man in the background, and it is rare that she shoots them down. In an oddly interesting and funny situation, where a woman got it right, but wrong at the same time, was when the porn star Mia Khalifa shot down a pro footballer, Duke Williams. I say she got it right and wrong because she's a porn star and has a boyfriend. This is obviously wrong, and her man is definitely a beta who feels blessed in banging a woman who has made a career out of taking the largest male members that can be found on Earth and choking on them and having them run down her baby maker. A true alpha male would not invest in a relationship with her. Sexual interest in investation? Yes. Investment? Yes. Relationship investment? Never. She got it right in how she shot down a random inbox from a guy that wasn't hers. Nonetheless, looking at her Instagram, it is clear that she is soliciting herself, her sexuality, and she's doing it in front of her man. Thanks to gynocentrism, this behavior has become the norm, and if you protest her self-pimping, there will be attempts to socially shame you into accepting her duplicitous strategy by calling you controlling or insecure, and all the other terms that white knights and feminist-minded individuals in her circle will use to attack you as if you are the one in the wrong. Jokes of cuckolding. They aren't funny. Sometimes a woman will joke about cuckolding. She will imply that if you aren't man enough to fulfill some odd and fickle desires of hers, she will go out and get another man who can or will fulfill those desires. Remember her biology here, gentlemen. She might do this passively, not thinking about the implications of her words. Also remember the selfie culture. There are men out there actively offering to fulfill her needs and knowingly cuckolding you at the same time, also willing to do that. Let me say this here. We men are our own worst enemies, and such men should be just anything or should be just short of killed, aka they really need to get beat down. This isn't harsh or excessive. A man willing to cuckold you is actively complicit in your wife's attempt to genetically murder your lineage. Moving on, she might joke about bringing another man into a relationship or a bedroom for whatever reasons. In all actuality, she has probably been sleeping around and is now trying to get you to accept the arrangement and presenting it to you as a joke. In this, she has plausible deniability if you react to her joke poorly and can take the victim route out of the conversation by claiming you are overreacting. This is actually quite ingenious. If you react poorly to her attempt at this, guilt or fear might overtake her, and she understands how it would look were she to start crying or become combative. If she presents the joke and loses her cool and starts crying or becomes argumentative and defensive, she can claim that it was your reaction to a mere joke that caused her to feel bad and react accordingly, not her feelings of guilt or panic. Blame shifting. Know for sure joking on this topic is hostile and you should respond accordingly and not forgive it, ever. As I stated before, it is her joking about genetically murdering your lineage. Mark my words, she will bring the topic up again if you do not react accordingly and push you to get to accept her biological wants, which is your genetic and social suicide. Before that day comes, you should probably be planning an immediate exit plan, and if you have kids, getting swabs for DNA tests to make sure they are your kids. The consequences. Much of what's said here in the consequences section will be a rehash, but you must understand the consequences to you as a man, and all the consequences are yours and yours alone, not hers. Regardless of how you are cuckolded, even if you are a willing participant, the outcomes are eventually all bad for you as a man. and exceptionally less so for her as a woman. If your woman has a child with another man, single mothers counted here also, you exert your energy and expend your resources on those children which aren't yours, your line is being cut off and murdered. For you, this means the end of your genetic line, but it means nothing of the sort for her, which is why women cannot be cuckolded. Now, I didn't go into detail here, but basically she can't be cuckolded because either way, her genetic line continues, yours doesn't. It doesn't matter what man impregnates her, her genetic line continues, yours doesn't. If you spend your resources on a woman who selfie cuckolds you, you are literally complicit in the pimping of your woman to another man. When it happens, you have spent time, resources, and energy on a woman who will not reimburse you for those costs. You have lost entirely. She has upgraded and done so at your expense, to her benefit, and your detriment with your approval. Conclusion. Cuckoldry doesn't benefit a man at any point, but has great potential benefit for any woman who can pull it off with the consent of her man. Any attempts by a woman to cuckold you should be seen as relationship breaking action. And she should not be forgiven down the road when she has wised up and learned her lesson. This means selfies, sex with other men, protesting to paternity testing, or asking you to take on parental duties of children from another man are all red flags and deal breakers. Men, if you got her, you can get someone else, and you should never accept the idea that it is her way or the highway. Let her go, because ultimately she will lose out, just as Amber Rose learned after openly admitting she had a threesome she disliked and would only have sex with Wiz Khalifa from here out, to which he said he isn't her failed sex life rebound guy. He valued himself knowing he can do better and sent her packing, as any self-respecting, self-valuing man should. Now she has no reputation to secure a man as a long-term partner and provisioner, and has publicly relegated herself to the life of a whore. Wiz Khalifa does not share her reputation. He is still rich and relevant, and his sexual market value will continue to remain high for quite some time. Women who do not overpower their base instincts and desires are less than animals and should be treated accordingly. She should be treated as a beast of burden and a beast of the fields. Verily, she has intellect but refuses to use it and follows her desires. Animals only have desires and instincts, and so can follow nothing else. How is a human who ignores intellect and follows animal instinct better than an animal who has nothing else to follow? Men who openly supplicate and orbit women, which gives them the false sense of being able to push their agenda, should be shunned entirely in male circles and completely ostracized. These are the men who drag down the value and worth of men in general, making women believe that they can pull off anything, regardless of how outlandish, aka genetic murder, and there will be a man there to pick up the pieces and save the day. White knighting. These men who break the code of brotherhood and trust amongst men need to be eradicated. They should know no respite, no respect, and women, being creatures of social proofing, will take note of them being socially shunned and shun them also. Value yourself, gentlemen. Know the realities. Be free. There's some typos in here, and I'll fix them, inshallah. But generally, this is my take on cuckolding, and I hope this answers your question. This is your man, Abuamerican. If you have any questions, comments, whatever, drop them in the comment section. Send me questions, and I'll do my best to answer it to the best of my ability as soon as possible. Catch me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all at Abuamerican. I'm out.